I was at Nokia. I remember, yeah, of course, totally aware of it. There was, I want to say, a general level of kind of like, I would maybe concerned pessimism. That it's not. Or, we shouldn't. Don't let that phase us. We're still making whatever. 15 phones a second. What could this do? And I remember Mike Krasinski. He went to go wait to get one, and he was he was a Nokia guy, but he's like, is this something we need to like pay attention, that kind of thing. Um, and I remember being not uh, not particularly like a Nokia patriot to the point where it's like, oh, well, I'm getting one, and I remember being that thing where people are gonna be like, wait, it's a little traitor. Like, why would you get an iPhone? But I did. For myself, I remember it being almost this like summation of all the things that myself and others who were involved in like mobile and pervasive computing and ubiquitous computing had been hoping for, at least as an engineer, as a platform. So there was also that kind of interest, like how can we tap into this? How can we use it? And how can we use it to conduct our experiments and probe what other future possibilities might exist? And it was fairly locked down. I remember, you could still sort of do things with it, but then things started popping up on it. Like people started making things, and there was this idea of I don't think the term existed before or check, but like apps all of a sudden became a thing. Like they were these little microcosms of experience that were absolutely, there was like a little pop of candy, and they almost looked like candy, like they were just kind of little glowing little squares on a screen. So it was. I wouldn't say it was definitive for me, personally or professionally, as a kind of like I don't see that as a necessarily in my mind as a mark of something. Of course, it was in a more systemic way. It represented this kind of transition to where we are now, both the good and the bad. It was also obviously like I think culturally, because I have an interest not just in the technology but also like the phenomenon around it and how those things operate. This the return of Steve Jobs. He's like, I'm back, and just that ability to 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 have a vision, pursue that vision with like kind of like as you learn over time, like that kind of relentless pursuit of just defining something and not letting anything else get in the way, like not letting the engineers say like, but what about suppose we do this thing? Well, I mean, it could be a little bit bigger and all those kinds of things. Like, nope, just pare it down. It's just like it's an iPhone. That's what it does. This is all that it is, and that just becoming fascinating by that I guess the cult of Jobs, as they say it, like how that is able to operate and what that company is and what it represents. Amazing comeback, and so that was another thing, just that moment of that happening. In an exciting way, it like I was describing it, it was like a platform for things. So it was I guess it was so if you compare, like, so it was the iPhone and whatever they called the operating system at the time, and then there was like Symbian, and that sort of represented like Nokia. And so those were the two, as a researcher, those were the two platforms that you had access to. And Symbian always, to me as an engineer, seemed much more like a telephone, whereas I think the iPhone and whatever their operating system was called at the time felt more like a, yeah, like you're saying, it like less like a phone. And I think it was, I'm not sure how to describe that like more specifically, other than it could just even be that Symbian, when you had Symbian running on like an N95 or something, like the N95 still definitely looked like a telephone. It had a keypad, those kinds of things. And so in a very almost like, yeah, almost from the perspective of industrial design, like what is that? If you looked at the first iPhone and never having seen it before, you might scratch your head and wonder, like, is it a TV remote of some new sort? And those kinds of things. You looked at an N95 or any other Symbian phone, telephone, got it. It's got, it's got that 3x4 kind of like keypad matrix. And I think your point is, it's really interesting to think about how these things have evolved. I said to a friend's daughter who's like 5.5, I used the word telephone, and she said, "What is that?" She just didn't know what it was. And you could also argue that she doesn't. Well, she doesn't know what a telephone is or a phone. She knows what an iPhone is, but doesn't associate it with telephony. Like, hello, is anyone there? That kind of thing, which is sort of interesting. I'm highly skeptical about the these platforms that we were all excited about in 1.0 or 2.0, and the kind of like I guess sort of liberal California hippie modernism perspective of what the world could be like and what it should be like. I think at the time, and I'm not saying like I had any great insight back in there, but I think I generally have like a level of a critical pessimism about lots of different things, but in particular, that's part of that is just kind of like my academic training to be like, not I guess maybe pessimistic is the wrong word, but critical, interrogate things and try to kind of unpack and dissect them in a way that helps you understand the, just their as close as you can get to their nature. And I think a lot of technology, almost all technology is represented hyperbolically. So it's not what it's not where it's going to end up. Its initial kind of thing is like not is it's full of promise, but no level of like critical interrogation goes along with that. Just at the fringes, and it's not part of the initial whatever sales message that goes out with the technology. And so I think that is the core of my kind of concern about technologies that exist today. You can go down the stack and very very quickly, especially now, understand that they're not all just for like some kind of very generic sense of good in the world. They're manipulated. They're manipulative. They kind of do things to us. They kind of program us and have a certain set of behaviors that I personally do not find necessarily to be the kinds of things that give me encouragement about the future of humanity. To just be kind of quite pessimistic about it, I think there are a lot of things that lead to broken styles of relationships, broken ways of understanding what the world is. People are exceptionally easy to manipulate. And so, just thinking about that the computer is actually programming us is often how I sort of look at these arrangements. So we're not just ordering, a tin of sardines from Alexa. Alexa is also kind of developing its fingerprint about us and our behaviors. And that makes me really nervous. It's these incredibly intricate profiles of individuals and swaths of humanity that someone somewhere can then just go and say like, okay, so I want them to now start doing this. And that happens.